How's it going, everybody? Bryan Alvarez here on Wrestling Observer Live. We are here every day, Monday through Friday, noon Pacific, 3 Eastern, Sundays, 3 Pacific, 6 Eastern. We got a lot to get into here today, all sorts of stuff to talk about. Not the least of which is this from WWE. WWE has now officially announced Andrade's suspension. WWE suspended Andrade for 30 days, effective immediately, for a first violation of the company's talent wellness policy. Pro Wrestling Sheet wrote that sources told them Andrade was informed of the suspension on Monday morning. On Raw, there was an injury angle. Andrade was written out to cover his suspension. So here's the story. Andrade got suspended. He's out 30 days. A decision had to be made. Do we take this belt off of him? Do we not take this belt off of him? Paul Heyman is very high on Andrade. And so the decision was made. We're not taking the belt off this guy. And so Humberto Carrillo ended up having a title match with him, which, by the way, was a little bit strange because they did a match on the pre-show, and Andrade beat him clean in the middle, and somehow this led to Humberto getting a rematch, but he did. So they do the rematch on Raw, and Zelina just runs in for the DQ. Very lame finish. So, of course, Humberto is furious, and so he goes after Andrade, he throws him outside, he pulls the mats away, he gives this dude the hammerlock DDT on the cement. That is the end of Andrade for 30 days. One of the stories of Raw last night was a bunch of fortuitous things happening. Now, it's not fortuitous that Samoa Joe landed on his head and may have a concussion. That sucks. I don't want to see anyone get hurt. But as a result of that, he got taken out of the match in mid-match. Kevin Owens, his partner, ended up going 1-on-2 against Buddy Murphy and Seth Rollins. And at the end of the day, everything worked out better as a result of Joe not being in the match and being injured, which was real. And in this situation here, Humberto Carrillo, I mean, he laid out Andrade with a DDT on the cement, and he put him out for 30 days. This is the best thing that ever happened to Humberto Carrillo. We could talk about this, all the other stuff on Raw, so much more. Back in a moment, Observer Live. Back in the show, Bryan Alvarez here, Wrestling Observer Live. Mike Sempervive, also of WrestlingObserver.com. This person here says, I think you were onto something when you said this year's road to WrestleMania is going to be the best in years. You're dead on. It does feel like Mania season now. Well, I'm a fair man. I was damn right. Well, we got a long way to go. Here's what I'm going to say to be a fair man. Raw, last night, there were a couple things on the show where, yes, it does feel like WrestleMania season. Absolutely. SmackDown, so far, it's a show. And granted, Friday was pre-WrestleMania season, so maybe this coming Friday they're just going to strap the rocket to somebody or something, I don't know. But, man, this SmackDown Friday was just there. Last week it was just there. SmackDown so far has been just there. But Raw had some really good stuff last night. The main event angle with Randy Orton and Edge was unbelievable. I cannot even tell you the last time on a WWE show that we had real emotion from the fans like we did during this segment. Edge comes out here. He does his promo. The fans just love Edge. He's completely sincere because, in fact, he did have a career-ending neck injury, and he did, in fact, come back from it. And he is getting one more chance to end his career on his terms. So everything that he said was from the heart. So it was a fabulous interview. He's just beloved. Randy Orton comes out. Randy Orton gives him the RKO after they hug. After Randy does this big speech about how there were times in my past where I had a self-destructive personality, he says. And he turns to the crowd and goes, that was in the past, not anymore. Which I didn't even realize until I was recapping it later how awesome that line was. And Edge was a guy that always pulled him out. And Edge is there, and he's legitimately in tears at Randy's speech. So I can only imagine what those guys went through back in the day. So Randy offers to reform Rated RKO, but then he gives him the RKO. Edge is down. And he's grabbing his neck, he's shaking his hand, and I said this yesterday, Edge is cleared. They're not letting this guy in the ring if one bump is going to result in his paralysis. He explained that he got another neck surgery. I'm sure whatever else he did, he's back, okay? Not as a regular every week, but he's back. But there was so much concern from fans at the Royal Rumble, after the Royal Rumble. Oh my God, what if Edge takes one wrong bump and he dies? Well, these fans are worried about Edge. And Randy gives him this RKO. He's shaking his hand. These fans are worried. And so Randy goes outside, as slowly as possible, by the way, because he's just the greatest heel. He goes outside, he grabs that chair, and he brings it into the ring. He gives Edge a chair shot to the back. I'm remembering all of this from memory, by the way, which tells you how great it was. Gives him the chair shot to the back. Edge grabs the back of his neck. The announcers are like, oh my God, he hit him in the back of the neck with that steel chair. Now listen, I ranted, rightly I might add, about how when Edge made his big return and hit that spear, they cut away to fans in the crowd and how stupid that was, and it was stupid. And they are, in fact, editing the first spear into the Royal Rumble on the network. So in 5 years, if you go back to watch the Royal Rumble, they don't cut to a fan. It's going to be accurate on the WWE network, whatever term you want to use. But this time they're cutting to fans, and it's perfect because Randy Orton is slow as a glacier, and there's plenty of time to show these fans, and these fans are worried. So he gets in the ring, and he wraps a chair around Edge's head, and he literally lays on Edge. He puts his head on the man's shoulder. Should I do this? Should I not? I just can't help myself. He's got an addiction to being a heel. And so he starts to move over to that middle rope, and they've got a long shot. You just see the whole ring. It's like the long shot when Okada does the Rainmaker sign. It's this long shot, and Randy's slowly climbing up to the middle rope. Edge's body is laying there in the middle of the ring. His hand is shaking. He's got the thing around his neck. And you can just see 25 rows of fans. And these fans are legitimately worried that Edge is going to die in front of their eyes. They're on their feet. You can see, I'm not talking one or two fans. This is not like Undertaker fan. There's a sea of fans. And they've got their hands on their mouths. Oh my God. No, Randy, you can't do this. Randy's on that middle rope ready to jump. These people are screaming. It's like it's the 80s. And then Randy gets off. He jumps off the middle rope. He just can't do this. And he starts to walk away. And there are actually a few boos because he didn't kill this guy. But in general, the people are just like, oh, thank God. Randy gets out of the ring. But then he sprints around the ring again. He grabs two chairs. He puts one chair underneath Edge's head. He's going to do the one-man concerto. People are screaming at Randy not to do this. But bam! He whacks this guy with the chair. Edge is dead. Randy Orton slowly slinks away. This, my friends, was a WrestleMania angle. This was not an angle for Backlash or Money in the Bank or whatever. Like Edge was, this is one of those things when we were talking about, I can't remember, now I can't even remember the match, but it was probably the, Jericho-Cody match where Cody is just the greatest babyface and Jericho's the greatest heel. That's what this was. Randy Orton was the most despicable, horrible heel. Edge was the most beloved babyface with a real injury that fans really believe could end his life. This angle was awesome. It was the greatest. I loved it. That was the main event of Raw.
It was a good night, and it ended with two superstars.
Professionals.
Two legitimate superstar professional wrestlers with a long history of knowledge with each other going out there and pulling real emotion out of fans. All of what pro wrestling is supposed to be about. So not much more that I can put on there without dragging it down. I agree with everything that you said. Like I said, it was a good night for their big guns. It was a good night. Drew McIntyre went out there and killed the OC, and I know some people are jumping on that about, well, you could view somebody else besides the OC. You are right about that, but it does make an impact, and also we don't necessarily know where AJ Styles is at right now with his injury, so if he's going to be on the shelf or possibly for a little bit, it's okay to cool off the OC for right now. Drew McIntyre over like $1 million. Becky Lynch's 180 back into having some swagger last night was good. Like you talked about, the fortuitous, the silver lining in the dark cloud that may be Samoa Joe getting injured last night and being concussed was the fact that match, I don't know if it got better, but it's certainly, talk about professionals, did not miss a beat, and you would have thought that it actually was supposed to have been that way. Liv Morgan, I don't know where they're going to go with Bobby Lashley and Rusev, but it was under 2 minutes. Liv killed Lana. That's it. Boom. Done. Aleister Black killed somebody. Boom. Done. That was great. I mean, it was a good night all the way around. I know some people aren't happy with Mysterio and MVP. I didn't really. I don't.
Dude, Mysterio got hurt. What do you expect?
And that's the whole thing. And it's like, look, they have a great affinity for each other, especially MVP for Mysterio, but it's not like they work with each other on a regular basis. So, you can't expect them to go out there and go Flair Steamboat. But talk about Flair Steamboat, just back to Edge and Randy Orton. At the end of the day, two old pros, two legitimate wrestling stars doing what they do best. It's fantastic. And what a great way to get Edge, who's not going to be there every week anyway, even though everybody's going to want him to be. What a great way to keep him out for 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 weeks. And whatever you wanted to do here, it won't be that long, obviously, in WWE's world. But, I mean, everything about last night worked really, really well. Couple of exceptions. I'm not sure about Carrillo and stuff, but we can talk about that when we get back.
Opening segment was just trapping the Rocket to Drew McIntyre. He beat Anderson and Gallows. They'll be fine. They'll be rehabbed down the road. It doesn't matter. Right now, the idea is to get Drew McIntyre over. And that's another guy. Drew McIntyre's out there, and he's talking about how he thinks it's a dream. And it's one of those promos where, look at the career of Drew McIntyre. I bet you anything that guy was speaking from the heart. That poor guy has had so many starts and stops and this and that, and he wakes up one day and he wins the Royal Rumble and eliminates Brock Lesnar, and he's going to WrestleMania. So it's another guy. He had a promo from the heart. The fans are super into the guy. He's got the 3-2-1 over. It's been like 2 weeks he's got that thing over. Things are looking good so far. Back in a moment, Observer Live. Back in the show, Bryan Alvarez here, Wrestling Observer Live. Mike Sempervive, also of WrestlingObserver.com. This person says, in kayfabe, do you think it's a little bit of a stretch that with so much reverence from current stars, no one came out to aid Edge last night? That is an absolutely fair criticism.
It is.
And the reality is, this isn't the wrestling that you grew up on if you're older. Like, in a perfect world, this is very simple. You have all of the baby faces in the locker room, and they're all huddled around the TV because they can't wait to hear what Edge has to say. Randy hits the RKO, they all rush to the door, and they've been chained inside, and they can't get out. Like, it's easy, but they don't do that kind of stuff anymore. And the fact of the matter is, that was not an angle that you want Randy to do something quick, and the dudes run down, and he runs off. This was an angle that needed to be done very slowly, very dramatically, and as a result, yes, poor Edge is out there for like 55 years and nobody comes out to help him. But that's what they do. I mean, it sucks. It sucks that we can't do these simple little things that we did back in the day to make things like this make sense. But the fact of the matter is, did this hurt anyone's enjoyment of this? Did this hurt the fans' enjoyment? Did this make you care less about their match at WrestleMania? I don't think so. I think that people have been watching WWE long enough that, if it were a situation where the babyfaces were regularly making saves for their friends, and now all of a sudden Edge has nobody saving him, sure. But the fact of the matter is, nobody ever saves the babyfaces. It's like canon. Babyfaces cannot be saved from diabolical heel, no matter what. They must not have friends. Unless you're Kevin Owens, who's friends with Samoa Joe. And apparently they're doing the storyline where Kevin Owens is not an idiot. Can you imagine that storyline? It's like, I can't even believe it.
I think that's the best one you could have for Kevin Owens because
that'd be the best one you could have for any top babyface.
Absolutely, but especially for him because nobody believes it anyway. Kevin Owens has been great. He is, there's always going to be how Vince views Kevin Owens, and there's always going to be how everybody else views Kevin Owens, especially the longtime fans that are some of the only ones that they have left, some of their hardest cores, and it's not going to be like a Daniel Bryan situation. That's special, but you see how MVP came back, and I love MVP, but it's like, there's a level of stardom there that he doesn't have in comparison to like an Edge. And, Kevin Owens is one of those guys that I think no matter what they try to do to him, no matter how much they try to put him down or kill him or dismiss him because of whatever reason that you choose, when he comes back, and they'll, believe me, over the time, if he's, available, they'll beg him to come back like they do everybody else as time goes on. The reactions that he's going to get are going to be great, and at some point, with both he and Joe, and it seems like it's right now, it seems like it's a perfect time with Paul Heyman in charge and needing to get over younger guys that they can help do so. Like, if this isn't the time for Samoa Joe and Kevin Owens to dominate Monday Night Raw, I don't know what is, because at some point, Edge is going to be gone. Randy Orton is on a limited schedule. You want Drew McIntyre to be that guy. But then you look at the rest of the roster, and it's not, dismissing anybody on Raw or anything like that, but, it's time. I mean, Seth Rollins needs guys to bang around with at that level of an Edge, of a Randy Orton, of a Eddie Guerrero at that time. I'm trying to think of who else was in the mix at that, upper echelon at that time. 15, 20 years ago. I mean, to have these memories like you're getting with Edge and Randy Orton, you're running out of time. And now is just as good a time as any to try to start to create those memories.
This person says, you've mentioned in the past that the days of pure babyface versus pure heel will never be over. It worked thousands of years ago. It will continue to work thousands of years from now. Yes, if you have the right guy or girl and they are promoted and pushed as a strong babyface, they will be a strong babyface. And the same with a heel. I mean, God bless Seth Rollins. He's a great wrestler. I'm sure he's a nice guy. But when he came out last night, and I mean, it's part of his character, but I mean, he says this on interviews as well. When he goes, enjoy it now, Drew. They'll turn their back on you, or whatever he said. I was like, dude, here's my question that I don't understand, okay? Does Seth Rollins, honest to God, think that he did nothing, quote-unquote, wrong, and the fans just turned on him just for the fun of it? Does he, honest to God, think that? Because I can't imagine being in this business this long and not understanding exactly what happened with Seth Rollins. The fact of the matter, I'm sure he's a great guy. Seth Rollins acted like a geek on social media and in interviews. That's real life. And he was portrayed as a geek on television. So whether you're only a television viewer or whether you follow the business closely, you were bombarded with Seth Rollins being a geek, and that was when everybody turned on him. Y'all want to go back a year and look at Seth Rollins' top babyface? That dude was mega over. There was nobody booing him. They were chanting, burn it down. He was as over as he'd ever been in his career. And the next thing you know, he starts saying stupid stuff on Twitter. He starts saying stupid stuff in interviews. He sits there in the corner crying because Bray Wyatt is looking at him with a Halloween mask on. Yeah, of course everybody turned on you because you came off like a geek. They didn't just turn on you for the fun of it. Oh, we loved Seth for 9 months, but we don't like him anymore. We're just going to be jerks. That didn't happen. Yes, push Edge like a babyface, and he will be over like a babyface. Why would anyone turn on Edge? They're not going to turn on Edge right now. Unless you push him like a geek, and unless he starts saying something stupid on social media and in interviews. And Randy Orton's just, I mean, he will get some cheers here and there because he's such a fabulous heel. But I mean, if you have a great babyface, then you put Randy Orton against that guy, and he's going to be a hated heel. That's it. End of story.
Plus, look, and this is the other thing with Seth, too. It's not like this is forever. It's not like it's got to stay this way forever with him. I mean, he was on the video game. He's got again, they have made mistakes with him, I think, more than anything he can do, which is not helping matters, surely. But, the mistakes they've made with him and the slip-ups they've made with him, again, in that same category with Kevin Owens and Joe and these other people, it's sink or swim time now, and I wonder if it's sink or swim time for Carrillo. I just want to bring him up just because I know you're looking at this as fortuitous for him in some ways with Andrade. I wonder when Andrade, they knew he actually failed the test. I would assume it had to have been Monday morning because I cannot fathom them beating Carrillo clean on Sunday at the pre-show if they had already known. And obviously they knew before they did the match last night, and they went the method that they did, and I thought that was good. But, I mean, really, you should have had Carrillo stumble and trip him up last night. And even then, I don't know. there was a couple of things about that. Why he got another title match at all was never explained. When he got beat at the Rumble, why? I don't know. Why did Jerry Lawler call him Justin Bieber? I worry about Carrillo on the main roster, and if there's any hope that now that he's lost the NXT title, that Garza could come up. I mean, now would probably be a tremendous time.
This person here says, why did Dave say on Observer Radio that Charlotte versus Ronda is the biggest WWE women's match to make? Becky's been champion for almost a year. I'd say Becky versus Ronda is more intriguing. Well, you're probably right. And I want to say something about the Women's Royal Rumble. If I were booking that Royal Rumble, yes, Shayna Baszler would have won. She would have challenged Becky, if that's the match that they want to do. But they decided that Charlotte was going to win, which made a lot of people very angry. Now, if your matches that you're planning for WrestleMania are Charlotte versus Rhea Ripley, which Dave reported last night, and Becky Lynch versus Shayna Baszler, if those are the matches you're going to do, then Charlotte winning the Royal Rumble sets those matches up better. Because Becky did a promo last night, and the cloud has been lifted. She's all confident again. I've beaten everybody. No one is in my league. Okay, that's a perfect promo to set up Shayna Baszler showing up at some point and choking her out and leaving her for dead. That sets up that match. If Shayna won and just challenges Becky, how do you logically get to Charlotte versus Rhea Ripley? How? There's no logical way to get to it. At least with Charlotte winning the Royal Rumble, she can do her promo and say, I haven't decided which champion I'm going to challenge. There's an easy storyline where Charlotte explains, I've seen this Rhea Ripley. She is tall and muscular and unbeatable, and she looks like a real challenge. And I want to challenge her to try to win back my NXT women's title. She can do that because she won the Royal Rumble. So, if those are the matches that you want to do, it actually makes more sense for Charlotte to win the Rumble, in my opinion.
So then do we get Bayley and Bianca at WrestleMania?
Sure.
I mean, because that would be the only, because to me it's like, well, Toni Storm, somebody's got to be, I don't know, somebody's still got to be a flag bearer down in NXT for a while. So it's like, to me, and judging how she did at the Rumble, who I don't know if she would be the most ready, because technically she's not. I mean, you got Io Shirai there, for heaven's sakes. But like, if you're going to pull the trigger on somebody, her getting a big win at Mania or around that time, the Monday after or whatever it would be, I think would be a great idea.
Hey, if you want to give us a call here today, the phone number, 1-800-878-PLAY, 1-800-878-7529. Text messages, 425-780-7566. And, of course, you can email me, Bryan at WrestlingObserver.com. We'll start taking some more feedback when we come back from the break. Any thoughts on Raw? Any thoughts on the WrestleMania lineup? Whatever's on your mind is fair game coming up after the break. Kota Ibushi, by the way, very quickly, Mallory Weiss syndrome. He's off the New Japan US tour. They are hoping that he will be back by the February 9th road to the New Beginning show in Osaka. Back in a moment, Observer Live. Back in the show, Bryan Alvarez here, Wrestling Observer Live. I'm Mike Sempervive, also of WrestlingObserver.com. This fella here notes, Bryan, Seth did nothing wrong. He only just blamed fans for complaining about the awful WWE product, blindly defended his company like a stooge, compared bank accounts with Will Ospreay, badmouthed Jon Moxley in interviews all over the nation, said Moxley was stealing food from his table when he actually doubled, tripled, or quadrupled his salary thanks to AEW, not to mention his horrendous babyface booking against The Fiend.
And his girlfriend was a bigger man than he was.
Mike, when's the last time that,
the man,
your son went to bed hungry because you couldn't afford food?
I tell him that because of you. Actually, it's ramen noodles for everybody.
Dude, that's still food.
Uncle Bryan.
That's still food. Seth Rollins here talking about how, Moxley going to AEW, I might not have food on my table. It's like, what are you eating? Elephant? What are you eating that you can't afford food with your 7-figure contract?
So that
you
horse
geek.
Meat that Overeem had. So he's got to get it that way.
Taking food off his table. I hate that phrase. I hate that phrase, taking food off the table. Especially when it's somebody in WWE talking about someone taking food off their table.
Well, what's he bitching about anyway? Then the man came home and brought home the bacon for him. So what's he
freaking buy a restaurant. What are you talking about?
Man. So did he go and smack Renee? Did somebody go smack Renee for him because her man took food off his table?
Let's go to the phones. John, you're on the air. What's going on?
Hey, Brian. Hey, Mike. I have a quick question.
Well, I hope so.
With the Rhea Ripley Charlotte thing, I think it's great that this is a possibility thing of doing the NXT thing. Can we do more NXT championship call-outs on the regular roster? I think it would help advance NXT in the eyes of the casual fans if they did that more. Plus, I have a question.
Yes.
Could we not send some NXT people over to the NXT UK thing to bolster that back up, too?
Well, I think you're going to see some of that. I want to thank you very much for the call. Here's the problem with your... Listen, John, in a perfect world, excellent idea. But this coming Wednesday on NXT, it is the finals of the Dusty Rhodes Classic. And the grizzled young vets are facing Pete Dunne and Matt Riddle. And I don't know this. Anything's possible, but I mean, I suspect that Matt Riddle and Pete Dunne are probably going to win the Dusty Classic. Okay. Well, Sunday, Matt Riddle danced his way down to the ring and was immediately thrown out by Baron Corbin. So, yes, in a perfect world, the idea of main roster people doing call-outs or vice versa for people on NXT, that's all great. But the moment these NXT wrestlers get involved with the main roster, you're falling into Vince McMahon's hands. You guys don't think Paul Heyman loves Matt Riddle? Seriously? What the hell can Paul Heyman do with Matt Riddle if the guy at the very top doesn't get Matt Riddle? Which... it's abundantly clear he does not. I'll tell you what Paul Heyman could do. Nothing. What can the SmackDown brand do with Adam Cole if Vince McMahon happens to look at Adam Cole and go, this guy's too small? Nothing. They can't do anything. So, yeah, in a perfect world, this would be great. You know how much talent there is in NXT? I mean, look at how much, honest to God, you know, Dave always talks about the New Japan roster. But I mean, there's only a finite number of people on that roster. If you look at everybody that WWE has under contract, there has never been a promotion with more talent under contract all at the same time than WWE right now. And it's a battle to have good pay-per-views and TV shows. Because there's a dude at the top who's 74 years old, and he started doing this in, like, the 70s, and he watched his dad do it in the 60s, and you can't teach an old dog new tricks, and he's just, oh, well, you know, thank God Keith Lee is big. I mean, look who got called up last night. No offense to Riddick Moss, but look at everybody in NXT. Riddick Moss wasn't even on TV. Not that he wasn't good enough to be on TV, but he wasn't even on TV. And of all of the talent that you've got in NXT, and how long some of these people have been doing this, you know how long Roderick Strong has been wrestling? Like, dude. And Riddick Moss gets called up. Why? Because he's big. So this is what we're dealing with here.
You are right. You're right. But let me go in reverse here with Riddick Moss. There also is a point with a guy like Riddick Moss where you have to go, we need to crap or get off the pot here at some point, because he has been there lingering around. I don't know what he's done since Tino Sabatelli. I don't know where Tino Sabatelli is. Why is Tino Sabatelli going to end up on the main roster if they're actually going to do a football thing here and have all of this support from Mojo Rawley and have this stable offensive line, whatever it's going to be? I mean, you could do it. I don't have any faith in them. Again, we'll have to see what Paul Heyman does. He's got his magic touch going right now. But, I mean, look at how Mojo Rawley, they come out, and it's like Byron Saxton goes, you know, it's time for a bathroom break. Mojo still loses. R-Truth just runs by Riddick Moss, gets into the ring dressed as a cheeseburger, and rolls him up and pins him. And afterwards Moss did his job blocking R-Truth getting from out of the ring, but it's like, okay. So I guess in that way, at least he's doing something, and at least you can figure out what you're going to try to do with this guy, if anything at all, because what is he doing besides sitting there collecting a paycheck in NXT doing nothing? Is he getting any better? I got to ask JJ how he is on the road, if he's been working on the road, but he hasn't been on TV. So I guess you might as well do something. I mean, you can look at it that way, I guess.
This person says, any truth to the rumor that Matt Riddle was eliminated quickly from the Rumble due to backstage heat? I mean, we reported that last night on Wrestling Observer Radio, so yes, there is truth to that rumor. It's not a rumor.
But is it new backstage heat, or is it just Matt Riddle exists?
I don't think Vince understands Matt Riddle, and Matt Riddle is a very, very confident guy who didn't come up in wrestling. He came up in MMA, and he's just Matt Riddle. What you see is what you get, and that's going to rub some people the wrong way. That's it.
Oh, one thing to mention, too, about what John was saying, too, taking that in reverse there, was the first thing about NXT and stars. Number one, when it comes to UK, the only thing that they need is visibility. And unfortunately, in a crowded world in North America, it's going to be a struggle. Even if you decide to put some names over there, there are still so many hours in the day, and it's going to end up getting forgotten about. And that's unfortunately too bad for those folks. But hopefully they can, they're getting more attention in their home markets. That's the only kind of, silver lining you can take in that. With that said, when it comes to the main roster, like you mentioned, when it comes to guys from NXT, they need to figure out a way to create some guys and women pulling themselves more from the pack and creating some more interesting scenarios around them on Tuesday nights or Wednesday nights, more than just the wrestling, because obviously something is missing as far as them drawing younger viewers, as far as they're making their program stand out a little bit more. I mean, again, it is very antiseptic. It is very good. It is very sharp, very clean. Most of the matches are very good. Hitting time, boom, all of that great stuff that they created the Performance Center for. They're doing a great job of it, but they just don't have any feels right now. And unfortunately, Tony Storm and Rhea Ripley last week, it was just something was missing, to me, or just something was missing with that, and it shouldn't have been missing. And those two should be bigger stars than where they are on their brand, and they need to, I don't know, they got to figure out a way to make somebody stand out there more and give people more of a reason to tune in and put AEW on the DVR.
Of course, it says, why doesn't Vince understand guys like Riddle and even Walter, who he notes got squashed at Survivor Series in 4 minutes? They're big guys, no? Well, they are big guys, but it's not all about being big or small. I mean, you're asking me to try to figure out what Vince McMahon is thinking and why he doesn't like certain guys. I mean, you guys remember the story about Jack Swagger and Chris Jericho? The reason that Jack Swagger is in Jericho's group right now is because Chris Jericho wanted him to be his heavy like a decade ago in WWE. He said, I want Jack Swagger to be my heavy. This dude's legit. He's big, raw-boned, and Vince would not allow him to have Jack Swagger as his heavy. And do you want to know why? Do you remember, Mike?
No, why?
Because Jack Swagger had a lisp.
A lisp.
Are you kidding me? And so Jericho ended up with Lance Cade. So
is that what? Oh God, Garrison Cade?
Yes.
Wow.
So,
jeez,
that's everything you need to know about Vince McMahon. Maybe he doesn't like that Matt Riddle talks like the way he does. Maybe he doesn't like that he doesn't wear shoes. I mean, maybe he thinks that Walter isn't shredded enough. It's Vince McMahon, dude. He's a crazy guy.
Do you even think he saw Dazed and Confused where he could say, is that Spicoli? Do you think he even saw that movie? Or not Dazed and Confused.
Dazed and Confused. Fast Times at Ridgemont High. Even I knew that one.
I damn sure didn't see, he didn't see Dazed and Confused, I wouldn't think. I may have.
This person says, my friends are crazy. They think instead of challenging Becky to become Charlotte 2 belts, that she's going to come down to NXT and challenge Rhea. Debunk them, please. Is no one paying attention to me today? That's the match for WrestleMania. That's the plan right now. Yes, plans change. But right now the plan is Charlotte Rhea Ripley at WrestleMania. What are you yelling at me for? Person says, NWA hired Sean Mooney.
Love it.
It's awesome.
Absolutely. You know what I want them to do, too? And they won't, but they should. They haven't brought back the old scroll that they used to have. Now, granted, it's one of the reasons why is because the NWA isn't really coming to your area like they used to do, but those Sean Mooney performance centers and some of the stuff he would do.
Dude, he was great.
I don't know how many people had Wrestling Spotlight, too. Some of the stuff that he would do with Heenan, or especially with Sherry Martel on there as either Ian or Sean Mooney. I mean, I don't know. He has always been underrated as an announcer for me and always been one of my favorites.
Dude, he's awesome. When we went to, I can't remember if it was a first Starcast or whatever, but I rode in the car with him all the way to the hotel. And Sean Mooney in 2019 or 2018 or whatever, he's exactly like Edge said he was. He's a little older. He's a little grayer. Other than that, he looks exactly the same. He sounds exactly the same. He's been working in news for decades. I mean, great delivery. I mean, I can't say you can't find a better guy because there's a lot of very talented people that nobody does anything with, but underutilized dude in this business. So I'm glad that he got hired here by the NWA.
I used to pop for it so hard, too, because he would be WOR. He would be working for WWE, but then he'd be on WOR out of New York, which was a super station. I don't know if it still is at this point. You know, so you would see him up and down the East Coast doing the news, and it was awesome. And kind of like with Scott Stanford, what they utilized him for, or what they at one point did for a very short period of time. Speaking about a guy underutilized, not doing a whole lot, I wish I knew what he was doing, because he's really good.
This person says, by the way, how in the world can anyone not love Brock Lesnar? The first half of the Rumble featuring him was awesome. In regards to Brock, I'm glad Vince doesn't listen to certain hardcore fans. There are people that hate Brock. I think for the reasons that WWE told you to hate him, they fell for it, thinking it's real. That Brock decides when he's going to come to work and when he doesn't, and how long his matches are going to be in the whole 9 yards. I do not understand not loving Brock Lesnar. He's the greatest. He was so awesome in that Royal Rumble. And I know that people online get mad, but if you watch Brock Lesnar, it doesn't matter whether the show is good or bad, and whether the fans are into the show or totally dead for the entire show. That dude comes out, and they come to life when he's out there. He's just the best. Back in a moment, Observer Live. Back in the show, Bryan Alvarez here, Wrestling Observer Live. Mike Sempervive, also of WrestlingObserver.com. This person says, if all stays on course, do you see Roman, Bray, or Brock and McIntyre closing WrestleMania? Doesn't feel like a push Roman to the moon kind of year, which in my opinion is good for him and the fans. I would not close with Roman versus Bray. I would close with Brock versus McIntyre. Because Brock versus McIntyre is going to be the better match. I don't know if they're going to go back to that red light. They didn't do it at the Rumble, but someone theorized that maybe there was no red light because they were going to be whipping each other, and you want to make sure that everyone can see the welts. It's possible they're going to go back to it. I don't know, but I just feel like Brock McIntyre is going to be the bigger match. Brock is the biggest star they've got, bigger than Roman, and McIntyre of those four names is the guy that they're trying to make. And so I think that's Brock's made, Bray's made, Roman's made. McIntyre needs to be made. And so he should close WrestleMania, probably beat Brock Lesnar, and away you go. That's what I would do.
What's going to be interesting with Roman and Bray looking like it's the biggest thing on SmackDown is, what do you do with Daniel Bryan? What do you do so people don't rebel? Because there's going to be a natural part of the audience that does not like Roman and Bray. And that's going to be the other reason why Brock and Drew's going to end up being the bigger match.
This person here also notes that Rhea beat Charlotte in the Survivor Series build. So there's something else that you can play off.
Yes.
Maybe Charlotte's looking for revenge and wants to take her title for that.
Good call.
Lots of ways you can go here. Want to thank y'all for listening. Thanks, Mike, as always, callers and listeners. We're out of here today. We got a lot of stuff up on the front page at WrestlingObserver.com. Sign up for more. And we'll be back later on tonight. Retro, Raw, and Nitro from 19 years ago last week. We are going to catch up, everybody. We're going to do last week's show this week, and then this week's show on Sunday. So next week we'll be caught up. Yeah, got it? Don't worry about it. That's it, everybody. Talk to you next time. Wrestling Observer Live.